Hello, everybody, and welcome to Focus and Friction. What does that even mean? We'll get there. I'm so excited that, first of all, I have this space. I've been wanting this video podcast space for so long. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm so passionate about the wellness space and as defined as all things fitness, nutrition, mindset, hormone, stress management, psychological, like all of the things. And it has to be all of the things. It's all interconnected to achieving the best version of yourself. So this channel and this space is committed to strengthening our mind, fueling our bodies, and removing friction and enhancing our focus. Because I think the common theme and thread are those two things. And that's why I kind of landed the plane on focus and friction. Friction being that like sticking point, like what gets in the way of us achieving our goals and making our decisions. And sometimes it's removing friction and sometimes it's intentionally layering in friction to make better decisions. And then focus is truly what we find most important, we're going to find ourselves focusing on, right? Our values reflect our time reflects our values, what's most important. And quite frankly, sometimes that's twisted. Sometimes you look at your time and your focus and you're like, that does not line up with my values. And how do I course correct? And how do I become more intentional with my focus? And another aspect is, what are we focusing on that maybe is distracting us from like the bigger, better picture? And so without focus, we don't have friction. And without friction, we don't have focus. And so when they come together, we can apply focus and friction to all of the pieces in the wellness space. So that is why this is called Focus and Friction. Number two is, who am I? Who am I? You might have followed me on Instagram. You might be a one-on-one client. You might be a course student. You might be coming from somewhere, shape, or form, or you might have just stumbled across this podcast and you're like, what is this? So let me tell you a little bit about myself. If you want me to like completely commit to an episode of Who is Daylin, Who's the Coach, I will let you know, and I can totally do that. But I'll keep it short and simple. So, long time ago, back in the day when I was super, super young, I fell into all of the things, as a lot of us have, whether it was a fad diet, under eating, over exercising. For me, at the starting line, it was over exercising and under eating, and intermingled with all of the sports and the school things and the social aspect of it. I was in dance, I was in softball, and just over exertion and not enough nutrition. And obviously the image of wanting to look and feel a certain way. I was hospitalized for 14 days, intensive care unit for low heart rate. Had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what this was classified as. I had no idea what was healthy and unhealthy. So much so to where when that was done, I actually overate, because what I thought was healthy was actually really calorically dense, right? Like the granola bars and the protein bars and the peanut butter and all of those things that you think are healthy, but like you also have to have mindful caloric value. So overwhelming. It was so overwhelming to the point where not only my mind, but my body was so tired. And I decided, like, if I'm going to be in this, I want to learn it the right way. And so fast forward, after, mind you, trying all of the diets, even down to like the Special K diet, where it was like a carb only focus. And then I did I remember it was an Instagram swipe diet where like it was a meal plan that was like 1,300 calories or something. And it was very dry. Jay and I did it together. My husband, not a fan. Tried all of the things and then got so tired of the ups and the downs and being like underweight, overweight, average weight, and just like never being in constant and feeling like I was in control. And especially being a runner, it was like, if it wasn't 3 miles, now it's 4 miles, and then it's 5 miles, and then that wasn't enough, so I had to do 6 miles. And it just got to the point where I was like, I want to learn the right way. I want to learn more. And so I jumped into a mentorship for about 8 months or so, where this registered dietitian and nutrition specialist taught me all things about caloric value and macros. I got my first set of calories, and learned kind of how fitness and movement and nutrition and calories in, calories out, what a deficit was. I learned all of that with my mentorship, became really passionate about it, threw myself into a development series of gaining muscle. So I built a ton of muscle in about, I would say, 8 months to a year. It was my first time doing like heavy lifting and resistance training. So if you've heard the term beginner gains, that happened. I created a lot of muscle really fast, and then went into fat loss and revealed all of the muscle. And that was fascinating to me. So I actually chose to join the bodybuilding community and wanted to make it a competition space. So I did the NPC bikini division for the last 5 years. My last show was actually this last December, and ended the season taking first place. I had never taken first before, so that was a woo-woo moment. So excited for that. But I am hanging up the heels, which we'll get into a little bit, I'm sure, down the road. But I'm ready to start a family with my husband. And so along that journey, I wanted to take my learnings and my passion and teach and serve others. So I created Fit Life Balance, which is my one-on-one personal coaching business in the fitness, nutrition, and wellness space. More so the holistic version of things. I think doing things the right, sustainable way for your body and mind. And I love Fit Life Balance with all of my heart. It started with like 3 or 4 clients, and it's become this incredible community of different people with different walks of lives and goal and starting points and ending points. And it's not just a fat loss fix. It's how do I make this part of my life? And so I absolutely love my role as a coach. So there's Fit Life Balance. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm also in the corporate world. I've been working for the same company for 15 years. Love what I do. And it's kind of in the HR space. So I have kind of best of both worlds, very different. And I love everything about it. I am married to Jay. You might hear Jay in my context of speaking. We've been together for 12 years and we'll be coming to 8 years of marriage pretty soon, September. And he's also in the fitness and nutrition space. Him and I both at some point wanted the education piece, and he went the NASM route. I kind of dabbled in the personal training education for a bit, and I was like, oh, it's not clicking. And then I was more into like the ACE version of like behavioral nutrition. And so together, he definitely loves the mobility and personal training aspect, and I love the wellness, the mindset, and the nutrition piece. And so together we're like unstoppable, except we haven't like merged at all. He's actually a director of fitness in a local gym, and he does an incredible job. So that is my story. And now I would say coming from the bodybuilding world, transitioning into kind of a season of wellness and learning more to add to my coaching toolkit. That's exactly what I do. Jay pokes me all the time because I am constantly listening, reading, researching, and I love to share my knowledge with my clients, particularly. They get a lot of it, but then also that's why I created the space of Focus and Friction, to share my learnings and my aha moments, my experience, my research, and kind of hit all angles. So if you're watching this to enhance a healthy physique or internal wellness or your mindset, habits and routines, and just the way to think about yourself and your wellness, you've come to the right place, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to hit all of those angles. So if you want me again to go more detail with anything, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to do it. But another little housekeeping item as we go into the first episode. The coolest part about this channel is, in my opinion, it is a newsletter and video podcast together. So if you are on my email list, it's free to join, and you just get a lot of my tidbits. Sometimes it's a recipe, sometimes it's a workout, all the fun things. And then prior to me dropping an episode, a virtual episode, you'll get a newsletter with like the transcript. And that's where I love to geek out. So if you ever read one of my newsletters, just imagine Daylin on a couch sipping my wellness water. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, or if you do, you know what I'm talking about. It's basically like a juice, tea, mineral water type of thing. Anyways, I'm sipping that with a candle and my glasses and my computer, and I'm just going. I don't edit. My business partner spell checks me sometimes, but I just write what's on my mind. So the topics may come out of nowhere, but I promise you they're all in the wellness space, because I'm seeking out something that I'm doing with myself. Maybe I'm working on with my clients. Maybe it's a most commonly asked question. Maybe it's something that is new and upcoming on the market, and I want to learn more and therefore educate in a different way. So all of these topics, newsletter and virtual podcast, they're all intermingled in the wellness space, but it's always both a reader and a watcher. Trying to hit all the audience. I'm just kidding. It's cool. It's fun. And the third aspect is every episode will come with a try it on tool. And I say try it on because that's exactly what I want you to do. Some of the things that you'll hear and listen to on this podcast or in the newsletter, it's not a one size fits all. It's a take it, chew on it, digest it, spit it out maybe, try it on for your life. And so the tools will help you kind of activate these podcasts, these lessons, these talk throughs, these advisories, whatever you want to call them, and take it and apply in your life. So they might be an editable tool. They might be a take it with you to the grocery store, take it with you to the gym. But regardless, you'll get a tool to activate and enhance your wellness in your personal life. So it's like part 3. There's 3. That's why I didn't want to go with like a podcast, like an actual like listen audio podcast. I wanted to make it multidimensional, a read, a watch, a do. And hopefully that sits well, and hopefully you love it. So that is a little bit about me, focus and friction, what to expect with this virtual podcast. And let's get into it. Let's get into the first episode. And so when I was thinking about what do I launch with and what do I want to focus on first, it's all things mindfulness and kind of breaking down maybe like a 4-point practice of ways to achieve mindfulness in your wellness practice. And I want to start with nutrition, and because I think that's the most commonly asked question. No, I think the most commonly asked question is, coach me how to intuitively eat? How do I intuitively eat? I want to go into an intuitive eating season. Sure, totally. I think what we don't understand though is anyone that's out there intuitively eating or mindfully eating has gone through a season of structure or education or learning. And we'll kind of get to that point. But I would say let's swap that out for intentionality. How do I learn how to intentionally eat? How do I learn about intentional nutrition practice, right? So I think mindful eating with like a side of intentionally, or like swapping out the word mindful to intentionally. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. So the newsletter has the first 2 points, but today I'm going to add on 2 more. So that's also a cool plus of the newsletter attached to the virtual podcast, is you'll always get like a little bit of bonus material, but I will also be going over the first 2 as well. So I put together 4 crafted mindful eating points and topics, things to think about. And I'm excited to see you craft them for yourself. I think the audience that is watching this or could be listening or reading is multidimensional. It could be like, I'm just starting out and I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never had macros before. Or it could be that client that's like, I moved on from calorie and macro and I'm learning how to mindful eat, or maybe I'm learning to eat differently or trying out different methods that honor my hormones, like whatever the journey is. So I do want to cater to everybody. And I challenge you to like, listen to the perspective that I'm providing. You may have heard some of these things before, but maybe I'm saying them in a different way. Maybe I'm putting a nice little spin to it or making it seem more tangible. So we're going to go through all 4. And the last one is going to be really like mindful. Like I had to add in some like woo-woo magic in there. Like when you think about mindful eating, don't lie. You think about your eyes closed and you're becoming one with your food and you're doing breath work as you take, right? Like, and you could 100%. And I think that would be awesome. I'm all for it. But today I want to give you some tangible things about like why or why not we are not mindful eating, or what we could do to mindful eat. But then the last one, we're going to do a little woo-woo. Okay, so number 1 is commit to meals. Task at hand. Commit to meals. Why do you think I picked that? What are the first couple thoughts that you think about when you hear commit to meals, right? Or like go have a meal. It's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. You're in your grind, you're in your hustle, and go commit to a meal. What are some thoughts? And I say this only because I've been through all of these things and I have been there in those shoes. Excuse number 1 is I don't need all that food. That sounds so formal. I don't need a lot. I just need like a snack, right? The commitment behind the formality is scary, right? I don't want to commit to a formal meal. It seems like a lot. I don't need all that food. I don't have time for a formal meal. And then when you think about a meal, it's like a plate, a fork, a glass, a napkin. Like that is just all a lot. That's a lot. And whether we want to admit it or not, it's true. And what do we do instead of committing to a meal? We graze, we snack, the bowl of goldfish or the bag of pretzels, like that's more convenient. It's quick and easy. And then we complain about the ups and the downs, and we have munchies at 12 and hunger pains at 4. And then we come home and we eat like 5 meals all at once, right? or we just can't stop eating when we get home. And it's just like a continuous pattern of eating until we go to bed, right? But we can't commit to meals because it's too formal and it's too much, right? So I think grazing and snacking, you actually consume more calories than you think you do by snacking and grazing. Because what are we snacking on? We're snacking on empty carbohydrates that don't fill you up, cookies, chips, anything salty or sweet that takes that like low sugar level and like spikes it right up, right? And then it's addictive and we want more, and our body's like, yes, please, because I'm so low energy. So we snack and we graze, and we're grazing on things that don't add value. And oftentimes, if we were to just commit to a meal, we'd actually be consuming less calories than we would be if we were to just snack and graze all day long. I get it all the time in the one-on-one coaching space. I barely eat. I don't eat all day. I just had like a couple snacks. I had like a latte, a granola bar, and I'm like, okay, so we're at like 3,000 calories by dinner because we were like snacking and doing all the things. Granted, calories to each their own. We're not talking about low calorie, high calorie, good or bad. I'm talking about the sole commitment to meals and what we do instead, because we're validating why we do those things. No time. I'm snacking. I don't need a lot of food. When in reality, let's start committing to meals. Be the person that eats lunch. Be the person that eats breakfast. And think about the psychological barriers, the friction that comes up on why we don't do that. And what are we focusing on instead of committing to meals, right? So it leads me to number 2 is making appointments with yourself to eat. Because another excuse is I don't have time. There's no space. I'm back to back and back and back, and I don't have time to eat. I wish I had time to eat. Well, you are the chooser. You are the chooser of that, right? So when we think about the notification that never pops up of, okay, it's 1:00. It's time for lunch. Go ahead and step away from your desktop. Enjoy a 15 to 20 minute meal, and the work will be right here when you're ready, right? That would be the dream. Well, it could be. It totally could be. And what do we do instead? We overpack our schedules. We're checking the box all day long, potentially a dentist appointment, a hair appointment, all of the things that potentially create an identity of ourselves, right? About being a good person, helpful person, a people pleaser, all of those things, because those create really great thoughts about our productivity throughout the day or our value as a person or our identity, right? We want to chase after the good thoughts about ourselves versus if we were to prioritize the things that maybe are selfish or lazy or slow or not productive. Those are all thoughts about ourselves that we don't want to think, right? And the people pleaser mentality, this is where I get spicy in the newsletter. You know what I mean? If you want me to focus on people pleaser a little bit more, I'd be happy to make an episode on it. But ultimately, we aren't people pleasing by saying no to meals, by saying no to all these things, because we have so many people to serve. I'm a people pleaser. No, you're not. You're not. And here's why. We are doing things for others all day long because we're running away from a feeling of being a bad person or a not helpful person or not productive, effective, successful person, right? And doing these little things for people, even if it's like they don't see it in the same way, you're just validating that identity about yourself. When in reality, if we were to equalize and invest in ourselves and create the appointment to eat with ourselves and commit to the meal, you'd actually have nothing to do at that point but serve and love others at your optimized self, right? Transitioning into my newest role in the corporate space, I get pinged all the time and I'm like, oh, I'll be free in 25 minutes. I'm just going to go eat my lunch. They're like, oh, wow. Like, I wish I could do that. I'm like, well, you can, but I promise you that I will be like a whole like elevated version after I feel my body and my mind. And I'll be more productive if I pause and I eat and commit to an appointment. And if somebody said, hey, your 3 p.m. hair appointment, is there any way you can come in at like 1:30? And if you really wanted to do that, you would rearrange your schedule. You would make the right calls. You would ping the right people to bump up your hair appointment, right? The same thing goes for your food. If you want it bad enough, if you see the return on investment, if you believe in a different set of values that are linked to commitment to meal and making an appointment with yourself, you'll make it happen. What's most important to you, aka, in my opinion, another topic for another time, your identity, right? What's most important that influences and impacts your identity will show up on your calendar, right? So how do you then make commitment to a meal, making an appointment to eat with yourself, a priority? Like, what would you have to tell yourself about you to make those two things happen? My question being, right? I would just say, think twice about your calendar in your day. No one is telling you when to eat, what to eat. I think decision fatigue is another thing that's not even on this list, that could prevent us from meals. It's like the what, the how much, the good, the bad, I'm just not going to eat. I'm good. I don't want that mental battle. And then you come home and you're exhausted and low blood sugar and you eat whatever. And all of those rules and those theories that you like held yourself back, were like the pause, right? But then you come home and it's like all out the window. The decision fatigue behind a lot of this is also one of the roots. So when you think about making an appointment, what time, when, where will you eat? Make those decisions ahead of time if you can. Committing to meals versus like, I don't know what I'm going to eat. It's just so overwhelming that I don't want to eat it at all. Decision fatigue is also something that how can you make these decisions ahead of time to make 1 and 2 a lot easier for you to accomplish. I'll never forget like walking into like a cereal aisle, right? Like it's like if you were to just give me 2 options, I would totally make a decision, right? But if you give me like 15, I'm probably not going to make one. It's like 26 things on your to-do list, too much. You like flip the paper over and you're like, I'll just do that tomorrow. Versus like if you had 2 number 1 and number 2 non-negotiables for the day, you bet your bottom dollar you're going to get those done, right? It's manageable. You don't have fatigue around just the concept of choosing, and the details. So going on to number 3, macronutrient education. Let me explain. That sounds a lot. That's like intimidating. Macronutrient is not a diet. Macros is not a diet. Macronutrient is short for food. Here's my thing. If you want a house and you want to be successful, you want to have money coming in, you want all the things, you want to be able to travel and go on vacation, but you don't want to learn finance, budgeting, return on investment, debt, bills, all the things, how are you going to expect to get all of those things, right? I'm not telling you to be an accountant at all, but I'm telling you that you need to understand a little bit of fundamental basics in order to have the vision and put your hands around that goal that you want to experience. Same thing with nutrition. You cannot want to feel, look, be a certain way, right? Every day, showing up optimal, high energy, healthy, skin glowing, good digestion, flat tummy, all of these things, and not learn a little bit about the fundamental basics. Because you could, but it won't last because you're not tapping into the roots of your knowledge, which then taps into your prioritizing and taps into your decision making, what you find valuable, the return on investment. You think about how your core beliefs are formed around food, and that's again another topic for another time. But what were you told is good and bad and right and wrong, and rewards with foods, and how big a meal should be, and carbohydrates, are they good or they're bad? All of your theories and truths will take over if you don't lean into being curious about the macronutrient space. All I would say is get to know what and why we need fat. What is fat? Why do we need it? What is protein? Why do we need it? What is carbohydrate? Why do we need it? Just stay there. Don't even think about calories or macro targets or any of that. Trust me, like you will be shocked by some of the fundamental practices that actually encourages fat loss, additional adipose tissue, muscle development. All of these things coming into play can actually simultaneously work with the physical results that you want to achieve. So take the time. In a very short form, like fat, mood, absorption of vitamins, digestion. Examples, avocado, nut butter, right? That kind of thing. Get the basics down and you'd be surprised on how you start to differently think about food, and then take it one notch further. And when you commit to meals by making an appointment with yourself, looking down and ensuring that you have each macro on your plate, right? And then linking it to what time and how often am I going to eat throughout the day based on your schedule. See how everything comes into play? But I think number 3, investing in just the core fundamentals of macronutrient. And maybe you already know, maybe you've had experience with it, but start to release the tie of macros means tracking. Macros means numbers. Macros means a diet. No, macros means food. And are we ensuring that we have all 3 macros in every single meal throughout the day? And that kind of leads me to my last one, but in avoiding naked carbohydrate, right? Like being able to look at what you're eating and does it have a carbohydrate and a protein, or a carbohydrate and a fat? when you have just empty carbs all day long, it's not that carbs are bad. Carbs are great. And that's a whole nother thing. But like carbs are fantastic. It's when you eat them naked, not like literally naked. When you eat carbs alone, you will experience your like glycogen levels, like your blood sugar go up and down. We wonder why we're fatigued and bloated and uncomfortable, and then we're crashing and we need caffeine. It's because, are we pairing appropriately all 3 macronutrients? I would say start with like 3 times a day. And if 4 makes more sense, do 4. That's up to you, right? But being able to have the little fundamental knowledge piece around macronutrients and why each one is beneficial, create that core belief, create that buy-in so you can then craft more detailed approach around your nutrition. Okay? Number 4, the woo-woo. Number 1 practice I love to do. If you have meditated, you know that your brain just goes crazy and wild, right? You sit and you try to meditate and you're like, I just planned out my outfit for the next week, right? That's really what I did in 3 minutes. That's normal. Your brain is primitive and it keeps you alive, and it wants to identify threat and defense and keeps you safe and warm, right? What do you do in times like that in meditation? 1, don't resist it. Allow it. Like, allow your brain to do what it does. The more often you meditate, the more your brain will actually quiet down. A topic for another time. What do? You breathe. You bring the thoughts back to a breath, right? With food, the way that I like to think about it is you have your food in your meal. You've got your phone, you've got another phone, you've got a screen, you've got notes, you've got a book, you've got social media. Now you're eating and you're scrolling, and then you're done with your food, you're bloated, you have gas, and you're still hungry. Like, what just happened? Same thing goes for like the meditation. Your thoughts are spiraling. They're all over the place. You use your breath to bring you back. With food, use flavor audits. Flavor audits are so fun, number 1. And number 2, flavor audits will bring you back to the moment. What am I tasting? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? Is it spicy? Is it soft? Is it warm? Is it juicy? Is it moist? Is it zesty? Is it dull? Like, how would you describe your plate? And even if you did that for 30 to 45 seconds, you would understand that you're coming into focus with your food, right? You're removing all of the other friction points to create more mindfulness on your plate. Number 2, audit yourself going into a meal, audit yourself going out. 5 seconds, right? Narrowing in your focus on, how am I feeling going in? If I'm experiencing stress, emotion, anything that's high intensity, maybe I'll do something else before I eat, right? Or maybe I'm like, wow, I'm really hungry. I feel empty. I feel achy. I feel sore. I feel moody. Audit yourself. Doesn't mean you can't eat. Doesn't mean you can't like continue on with your day, but just like a check-in with yourself. Why did I wait too long? Is my blood sugar really low? Am I moody? Am I stressed? Am I forcing myself to eat? Am I full? Why am I full? Are my hormones not communicating? Right? Like, audit your way out. Am I full? Am I bloated? Am I distended? Was that good? Was it flavorful? What did I want to change, right? Do I feel lethargic now? Like, could I maybe lean into something else? Are all 3 macronutrients involved? And what do I want to change tomorrow? Audit your way out. And maybe it's positive. Maybe it's like, I feel great. I feel like I conquer the world. I'm ready for my next meeting. Like, whatever it is, audit before and audit after. The key to successful nutrition is to get to know yourself, period. End of story. What does your body react great to? What does your body react not so great to? Everybody is so different. And that's why, there's 1,000,005 diets out there, because it's catered to the individual. Everyone is so different. And it starts to just like accept yourself in the version you are, and maybe solve for the right things for you. Wow, I keep ending up fatigued after my meal. I'm so lethargic. I don't want to go back to work. Now you're causing, or you're preventing, or you're dialing in on a symptom or a biofeedback marker that you can actually be intentional with, versus like, I want to eat healthy. It's like, okay, we'll go deeper. What biofeedback symptoms are you experiencing? What's trended? That's where the audit in, audit out theory is such a great practice. Last and final one is kind of what I mentioned earlier, so I won't go too crazy into detail, but the order of your consumption. Always start with something savory, protein, fat-based versus going straight for the carbohydrates. If you go straight for the carbs and the sugar right away, your blood sugar spikes and it often crashes. It doesn't mean you can't have the bagel, but like, put some eggs with it. Again, going back to naked carbohydrates and being able to use that as a filter as you plan and execute your meals. Trust me, that alone will keep your mood stable, your energy flowing, and just more conscious of your decisions and how they make your body feel. I am the biggest, I like finally just solved this for myself. I like would go to bed super hungry and like just munchy and nibbly. And then I realized I'm like, yeah, girl, you're having like protein, or you're having oatmeal with like chocolate chips and like peanut butter, right? There's no protein in there. And so nothing would stunt my blood sugar spike. And then I would wake up and my blood sugar would drop so low because I had such carb heavy meals before bed. And not to say that's bad, doesn't make you gain body. Oh, no, that's a whole other topic. It doesn't, like, calories in, calories out in somewhat form. But experiencing your blood sugar is so important to not only encourage your goals, but also prevent other things from happening. So I would wake up and I'd be like blood sugar low, and I'd be like, I need a pastry like now. I need like a bite of something sweet. I didn't want anything savory. I just need something sweet. It was coffee and cream for a while before I stopped doing coffee in the morning. But I was like, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to think differently about this. Well, now, fast forward, I have a protein-based dessert. I eat 1 to 2 hours before I hit the pillow. And then in the morning, I start with something savory. And oh my gosh, my world has changed. So I think the order of your plates, I like to think of it as like a Chipotle bowl. Kind of, sort of. Like they have the veggies in the front. So if you're going to go with carbs, like you have the peppers and then you get to the beans and like all the things in order of operation. Granted, it's not exactly like Chipotle or anything like that. But ultimately, it's like, can you plan your first bite more intentionally to prevent spikes and ebbs and flows throughout the day, to keep your energy and your mindfulness stable? Okay, I'm already past the 30 minutes. I'm so excited for this space and this channel. Next week, I think I might change my mind, who knows, but I think I'm going to go over mindfulness and movement, being mindful with your movement. And yes, that could be exercise and fitness and cardio in the gym and all the things, but I like to call it movement because exercise means something different for every single person. So stay tuned. Again, newsletter first, virtual podcast second, and then a try-on tool to end the series with. Okay? All right. I will talk to you soon.